Hey everyone. In today's video, I'm going to show you a yard that took me almost an entire year to get the weeds under control. It took me right at about 10 months. So I recorded the process of that. And before I get too far into this video, I want to go back in time and talk about a couple of things, a couple of reasons why it took me almost a year to get this yard under control. So watch this first. Hello everyone, this is Kyle Tucker Lawn Care here. I wanted to come and show a new yard that just signed up for our services. This is a new customer and I wanted to sort of document the process over the next few months with this yard. So this is the first video. Today is April the 10th and I just did the first treatment on this yard. So this customer is kind of overwhelmed with the amount of weeds that they have in the yard. So they called us to see if we could get it under control. So let's see, what are we looking at here? This yard has mostly consists of broadleaf weeds. You know, here we have dandelion. This is hairy bittercress here, which it's also a broadleaf weed, but it produces a ton of seeds. You see what happens when you just kind of run your hand across it. I don't know if you can see all the seeds that are flying up there. You know, thistle, other types of broadleaf weeds. There are a few grassy weeds here and there, but I wanted to make this video and just document the process of what a lawn goes through when it gets treatments. This is a corner lot here. We get plenty of sunlight, some excellent, healthy, sodded grass here that is doing well, but they were just concerned about the amount of weeds. So we're gonna do what we can to get it under control. I went ahead and sprayed pre-emergent on this yard to prevent a lot of those summertime weeds like crabgrass from popping up. Like I mentioned, it's April the 10th, so we're still technically in pre-emergent season. You really wanna get that done back in January and February. But I think we'll still get enough in the ground just to prevent some of those mid-summer, late summertime weeds from emerging. And then I had some post-emergent mixed up in this treatment as well, some broadleaf weed herbicide to help knock out all of these broadleaf weeds. So they're gonna water this treatment in, mow it in about a week, and we'll see what the results look like. Of course, throughout the summer, we'll hit it with fertilizer and we'll start promoting the healthy growth of the sodded turf grass here. Okay, it is about a month later, or maybe about 5 weeks later. I'm here to do the second treatment on this lawn. The first treatment I sprayed broadleaf weed herbicide and it knocked out a lot of those winter weeds that were present in the lawn. But now, if you remember, there was no pre-emergent in the ground. So we have more weeds here. We've got some crabgrass popping up along with some other random broadleaf weeds. So I'm gonna spray a product called Celsius. Celsius is labeled for crabgrass and other grassy weeds, other broadleaf weeds like spurge, oxalis, which is what this is with the yellow flower. So hopefully Celsius will knock out a lot of these weeds that are present in the lawn. I'm also going to apply some fertilizer, which is going to help dollar spot. I have another video on dollar spot, but it's essentially a lack of nitrogen that causes this fungus, which is the brown that you see here. It's really not necessary to apply a fungicide on this. Just putting nitrogen into the ground is enough to produce new growth, and then they'll end up mowing out the brown spots. So I'm going to spray Celsius here to knock out some of these weeds and apply fertilizer, and then I'll follow up in a few weeks or a month and see what the lawn needs at that point. Well, this yard seems to just keep getting worse and worse from a weed perspective, but I'm going to tell you why. If you remember at the beginning of this video, I mentioned my first treatment on this yard was April the 10th. Well, we're toward the end of July now. August is right around the corner. So you think that I would have had enough time to get control of all the weeds in the yard, right? Well, what do we have here? This is crabgrass. Why do we have crabgrass if I've been treating this yard for 3 or 4 months? Well, the first treatment that I did was April the 10th. And I did a pre-emergent treatment at that time. However, at that time, it's really too late for pre-emergent. If you want to control crabgrass, you really need to get your pre-emergent out
in January and February. So you want to get your pre-emergent out in the winter time in order to get control of crabgrass that following summer. So here, this yard is covered in crabgrass, and it's nobody's fault. It's not my fault. It's not the homeowner's fault. It's just the timing of when they signed up for our service. It was really just too late for pre-emergent at that point. So now you really want to find a good post-emergent herbicide that can knock back this crabgrass. And the customer is very patient, so they have sort of low expectations here because of the amount of weeds that they had when they bought this house and when they called me. Yeah, at this point, you really just want to find a good post-emergent product, like Drive, that covers crabgrass, or Celsius or something like that, and just kind of keep the weeds at bay for a while until fall gets here. And then the longer the customer is on service, the better this is going to get. They're going to get the fall pre-emergent, the winter pre-emergent, next year's spring pre-emergent, and next summer I have high hopes that this yard will not have this many weeds here. But it's always good to, ask questions and understand how the pre-emergent process works. It was too late for pre-emergent at that time. The weeds have already, germinated, and they were going to be on their way out this summer no matter what. So I'll check back in with you guys and kind of document the process with this yard and keep you updated. All right, everyone, welcome back to the future. So I'm here at this same yard about 10 months later. So it is February right now. The grass is still dormant, as you can see, and we have gotten rid of all the weeds, finally. So I wanted to talk about a couple of reasons why it took so long. And the main reason is that first initial treatment was done in April. And although that pre-emergent window is still technically open, at that time it's barely open. So you really need to have your pre-emergent down throughout the months of January and February, and then you can do a second spring application in March and on through April. But at that point, this yard had no pre-emergent barrier at all. So a lot of crabgrass popped up throughout the summer, and all summer long I struggled with just any type of weed you can imagine: crabgrass, broadleaf weeds, nutsedge, anything like that. All the summertime pest weeds that you can imagine. So I applied post-emergent every time I came out to go along with the fertilizer that I would apply on this yard throughout the summer. And that helped a good bit, but of course there was no pre-emergent barrier in the ground, so more weeds just kept popping up and popping up. Well, finally fall came back around, and I started that fall pre-emergent process up. Thankfully, throughout the winter, there's no poana, no weeds at all. I ultimately ended up killing the crabgrass, and then of course the winter temperatures helped knock that out too. So we finally have this nice tan dormant color here in this yard, and they have gotten prodymene, which is the winter pre-emergent. It's a pre-emergent that I put down in the wintertime to prevent weeds from coming up this summer. So prodymene is the main active ingredient pre-emergent, and I would say it's the best pre-emergent product out there for crabgrass. So they shouldn't have the weed issues that they had last summer, since they're getting all of the proper pre-emergence here. So I just wanted to document this whole process, and I think it's neat that that you get to see that process. You didn't really see me do much work, but throughout the pre-emergent process, we ended up knocking out all the weeds. Well, one other thing I wanted to talk about is, why would a customer be okay with waiting a year, 10 to 12 months to get good weed control? Well, if they understand the whole weed control and pre-emergent process, then they'll be okay with that. But that's my job, to convey that information and to communicate properly throughout this whole process. So if you communicate well, let the customer know that it's going to take a while to get those weeds under control. Explain that pre-emergent process to them, then they're going to be okay with it. And thankfully, my customer was just fine with waiting. You could come in with some really strong post-emergent products and really hammer the weeds and knock them out.
But in residential lawns like this, you don't want to damage the grass. So it's kind of a fine line. You got to mix properly, read the rates, always make sure you're mixing correctly, and just be patient. It's all about timing when it comes to pre emergent. So thankfully, this customer was patient with me, and we finally got the weeds taken care of almost 10 months later. Thank you for watching.